minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock. Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, the Housing Development Corporation, or HDC, is launching an illegal occupancy campaign entitled It's Not Yours. And so joining us to talk more about it this morning is Divisional Manager of Corporate Services at the HDC, Mr. Jeremy Campbell. Mr. Campbell, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Before we get into the campaign itself, just give us an overview about the current situation regarding the illegal occupancy at HDC.
Right. So before we start, what we need to understand is a definition of what HDC terms as illegal occupancy, right? So illegal occupancy for us is anybody that occupies or moves into a unit that is not theirs. It was not assigned to you. It was not allocated to you. You moved into a property that there's no documentation that it is yours.
Is that something like subletting?
No, it's a bit different. Subletting is when the house is yours and you would have basically wanted to rent it out to someone, but you still need to come to the HDC to get permission for those things. You can't just sublet a unit like that.
Just like that?
Yeah. So
then what are the instances where somebody might move into a house without getting that approval from HDC first?
Right. So we would have seen a spike or a trend in the last couple of quarters where persons are moving into HDC units illegally. So they are seeing units that are possibly under construction, units that are about to be given out, and they are just breaking the locks, moving in. So this is something where we said this is the time to nip this in the bud and basically have a public campaign to advise customers as to what is the right steps to get the HDC house.
So are they squatting in an illegal house?
That's one way to put it. Yeah, that's one way to put it. But what they are doing, obviously, is illegal. Obviously, there's an act, the Trespassing Act, which clearly states that breaking and entering into a property is obviously illegal. Yes. There's a $100,000 fine. There's a 15-year charge that comes with it. So the HDC felt it necessary to ensure that the public understands that if you have not been assigned a unit, if HDC has not given you a contract, a sale agreement, you have not paid for it, it is not yours. You cannot live in it, you cannot move in. It is illegal. And
what sort of measures is HDC taking on the back end to address this?
Right, so that's a good question. So what we would have done, this is a problem that has been systemic, and we would have been doing a lot of work in the background, right? So HDC would have done numerous verifications. We would go to communities to determine who the occupants of the units are. So the social department would have gone out to verify biodata. This is the customer's name, income, but obviously they would have picked up that this is not the person who we have on our records. When they find that information, basically, they would then inform the security department, who would then start their investigations. But we have a lot of back-end work that has been taking place for quite a number of years, but we felt it necessary with the other campaigns that we had to ensure that customers understand, listen, this needs to stop, and we need to put a stop to it immediately.
But Mr. Campbell, you mentioned this is a systemic problem, right? It's happened over a period of time. How do we have vacant houses that are not occupied so that people can actually go and occupy them?
So it's two things. Basically, it's units that are under construction, that are new construction, and it's basically old historical traditional rental units, right? So the units are either under remediation or it's under construction. But obviously, no one can occupy a unit if it's under construction or under remediation. So persons have been moving in these units. But what we are saying is that's not the way to approach
it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you would have realized over the past year, we had certain campaigns. We initially started with the HAFS campaign, where we said this is how you apply for a home. You go online so you know how to get a house. Then we had the more ways to pay over the last couple of months. When you get your house, this is how you pay for it.
Right.
So now we are basically moving a step further and saying, if you know someone who's doing illegal occupancy, come and tell the HDC, and the persons who are doing it, that's not how you get an HDC house.
It's not yours.
It is not yours. It is not yours.
So don't occupy.
Don't occupy.
Now, are you working with any agencies, for example, the TTPS? So when that person moves in, are you going to bring the TTPS down to evict them? I mean, how does that work?
Right. So the agency is a very caring organization. We are not in the business of evicting persons. That is not our mandate. Our mandate is to provide safe and affordable housing, right? So when we do identify persons who are illegally occupying the units, we issue what is called a notice to vacate. This is a legal document. Now, that document gives you 7 days minimum, but we can't give you more time to move out. So once the customers get, or the occupants, for example, get those documents, we would then circle back with the social department, circle back with the security department saying, hey, we are coming, you need to vacate. Obviously, we would be liaising with the TTPS for obvious reasons, but it's not a heavy-handed approach. We are trying to work with the persons, give them a time to vacate the units. We come back and say we are coming to remove it from the unit, and obviously the TTPS is just there for moral support.
Moral support. And there's a smile when he said that. Yeah. Now, how is this different from what we've been seeing playing out in different parts of Port of Spain, where we have the police who are actually helping to remove things from people's homes?
Well, I can't speak to that. We would have contracted an eviction crew that we would use to conduct HDC evictions. Obviously, TTPS, like I said, is there depending on the circumstance, but we have certain contractors and certain HDC employees that would assist with these initiatives.
But what we're seeing playing out, let's say, for example, in Port of Spain, Lower Port of Spain, that isn't part of the It's Not Yours campaign. That's something different that you're doing?
Right. So that situation that occurred recently, this is a building that was deemed as being uninhabitable since 2010, right? Due to HSE concerns. There was a flooding that occurred some years ago, and we had to condemn that building. So persons who have been moving into that building obviously are living in very unsafe conditions, and being a respectable and a responsible landlord, we would have spoken to them numerous times indicating that you cannot live there. You're putting yourself and your kids at jeopardy. So we would have contacted them since February. We gave them time to move, but at the end of the day, we needed to get them out of there for their own safety.
And they were relocated to other HDC apartments, or did you leave that up to them where they would find lodging?
We left that up to them because those are illegal occupants. What I would like to say, though, is that there are two things happening simultaneously. One, once somebody moves into a unit illegally, right, you as an applicant, you would have applied for a home. You would have, went through the TTMF process, you would have been randomly selected, waited how much you have for years, and this illegal person is in the house. So therefore, you are now at a disadvantage because you can't move into your home. You have to continue paying whatever rent you're paying, or with your mother-in-law, or whatever circumstance you're in, so you can't occupy your property. Secondly, the taxpayer now has to pay money because the HDC now has to hire contractors, buy material to remediate this unit so that you can now move into. So those are the two very serious issues, which is why the HDC felt it necessary to have this public campaign about illegal occupancy.
Now, illegal occupancy, does it occur in certain areas, or is it across TNT?
It is across TNT. We don't want to identify certain areas, but it's a perennial problem and a systemic problem that we are working assiduously to curb.
But as an example, more in the east, more in the south, maybe central?
More in Trinidad.
More, more in Trinidad.
More in Trinidad, yes.
More in Trinidad. So then why, I mean, but it seems to be a major problem. And so why now?
Well, it's like I said, it's something that we would have been dealing with before, but in the last couple of years, obviously with COVID and different situations, and then we would have looked at the data. Everything is data-driven. It's not done by VAPs. We would have seen there's been an uptick in the last couple of quarters with illegal occupancy. We're not sure why, but we felt it necessary because we are currently rolling out numerous campaigns. We felt it necessary to come to the forefront and advise persons, this is what you all need to do. This is how you go about getting an agency house legally. If you see something, say something, because we would have gotten a lot of information from our verification surveys, but thankfully the public has been coming forward because they realize someone occupying a unit illegally means someone legally can't get it. So thankfully the public has been assisting us. So we just felt it necessary that this is the time to come forward to address these issues.
With that database that you have with that information, are there people who would have been illegally occupying a unit from HDC who would have been on the system for years waiting for a home?
In some instances, there would have been. Once that is the case, obviously, we have a social department where we try to engage persons. Obviously, if someone is illegally occupying a property, in most instances, it could be that they couldn't afford anything, so they would have moved into a house illegally, but it's still wrong, right? So we would engage other state enterprises, such as the Ministry of Social, to provide assistance, because at the end of the day, a house is not the solution sometimes. The person may need social assistance, food cards, different benefits that the agency just can't deliver. But we would put those customers onto the Ministry of Social and other state enterprises to give the necessary assistance.
Is there a monetary value at this time that you can give for the debt that HDC would have incurred because of how they had to hire contractors to now rehabilitate the homes before the legal owner occupies it?
I don't have that figure offhand, but I'm very sure it's substantial. It's something that we need to bring down because the taxpayer pays that cost. And again, it's not just a physical monetary cost. There's an emotional cost to the legal customer who's assigned to that house that can't move in. There's a family being deprived from their rightful home.
Let's look at some success stories. I mean, can you speak to any cases of a successful intervention by HDC as it relates to these illegal occupants?
So I would say for us, what we consider success is when a legal person goes through the proper process and we are able to remove an illegal person and that legal person gets the house. There is no success or joy that the HDC takes from evicting someone. It's a very unfortunate situation that we have to put ourselves in, but obviously it's something that is necessary. Not because everybody is doing it means it's right. Everybody can't be doing the same wrong thing and expect that agency will always assist, and there needs to be a point in time where we say, hey, this is how you go about getting a house, this is what you need to do, but you can't move in a house illegally.
But I mean, Mr. Campbell, if we're being honest, there are some people who will take advantage of the system, right? They will come on TV and they will plead for help, and about 3 weeks' time they get a house. So is that them beating the system then, as opposed to waiting, in line like everybody else does?
Well, I can't speak to those situations. We obviously try to adhere to the allocation policy and adhere to the mandates that we have been given. Obviously, persons do have the right to speak to persons in higher authority for assistance. Once we are given an instruction, we can give assistance, but we are not in the business of normalizing illegal occupancy. It is wrong, right? Not because everybody is doing a wrong thing means it's correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's go back to that 7-day period, because you say if you're illegally occupying this unit that is not yours, they give you that notice. You have 7 days to vacate.
Right.
You don't vacate in 7 days. What's next?
Right. So if you don't vacate in 7 days, before the 7 days, the security team will come and visit and say, hey, we are coming on the 7th day. If you don't vacate, well, obviously the machinery will start. You will actually see the security team there. You will see a mobilization crew, an eviction crew, which will come to basically ask you respectfully, obviously, that you need to move.
And I mean, the genesis for this, it's not yours. Is it simply to tell the public that they shouldn't be occupying a unit that's not theirs? So, I mean, what is the reason for this sort of thing?
The main reason is because of the uptick that we saw in the data. Like I said, it's not based on VAPs, it's based on data. And we have seen a serious uptick in the last couple of quarters with illegal occupancy.
Did we see an increase during the pandemic?
We did, actually. But for some reason, it's surging again. COVID is on the decline, we assume. But we are still seeing an uptick in illegal occupancy. So as responsible landlords, we need to address the situation. If you and I were renting units and person were moving into our properties illegally, I'm very sure we would have done the same thing,
And is the HDC doing a deep dive to see why we're seeing that uptick?
Yeah, so that's where the social department comes in. So when the social department assesses the situation via the verification service and picks up data that this person would have moved in, they take the customer's information. A lot of times it is, obviously you can understand why someone would do it, but it doesn't make it right.
Give me an example.
Right, so for example, someone may try to escape a domestic situation, or obviously there are persons in nefarious activities as well. There are many situations, but regardless of the situation, it still does not make it right. So what the social team and what the HDC team will try to do is to take that information and put them onto the respective agencies that could really give assistance. Because the main thing is that because you're occupying that house, a family cannot occupy their rightful home. And then the taxpayers have to now pay to remediate and fix this particular unit that we already would have, sorted out.
Now, earlier you mentioned it's a Trinidad problem, and that's fine.
A Trinidad problem, yes.
But can you give me some data in terms of how much of a Trinidad problem it is? For example, are we seeing 100 units per month, 200 units per month that are being illegally occupied?
So it's a very fluid figure, and I don't want to give the figure just yet because it's a very fluid figure. We are continuously removing persons who are illegally occupying units, but obviously because of the uptick, if let's just say last month was 2, this month maybe 4, but next month maybe 3, because there's a continuous systemic effort by the agency to ensure that this illegal occupancy is curbed. Right, but the uptick is what's the issue for us, and that's why we want to make sure that we curb this surge that we are seeing.
And final thoughts, Mr. Campbell?
So my final thoughts, obviously, like I would have said before, not because everyone is doing a wrong thing means it's right. If persons in public are making it seem as if it's a right thing to do, please be notified that the Illegal Occupancy Campaign is to advise you that legally there's a trespassing act, there's a $100,000 fine if you are found to be breaking into HDC property, there's a 15-year charge where you will be incarcerated for occupying HDC property. Obviously, the persons who are friends of persons who know that they are illegally occupying, we ask and urge that if you see something, say something, because again, it's a family that is not being allowed to occupy their home because of illegal occupancy. It's your taxpayers' dollars that are wasting because we have to now remediate these units. So we are just trying to work with the public to ensure that we achieve our mandate while successfully ensuring that persons do the right thing.
And for people who want to report to those instances, is there an email, phone number?
Right, good question. So we have a hotline which will be launched on the social media platform, but we have an email, securityissues@hdc.gov.tt. Once the information comes there, the security team will then investigate and look at all cases and see how we can rectify them.
Good. Yeah. Well, Mr. Campbell, thank you so much for coming in and talking about, of course, It's Not Yours, the campaign from the HDC to prevent illegal occupancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that, of course, was Mr. Jeremy Campbell, the Divisional Manager, Corporate Services at the HDC, talking about illegal occupancy and the campaign It's Not Yours. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.